Be confident, be bold, be authentic, but don't forget to take action. This is Ordinary to Badass, where our stories empower women to step into the spotlight of their own lives and pursue what they're truly passionate about. It's time to step into the arena and become more than just extraordinary. It's time to become a badass with your host, Marie Sonneman.
Welcome to Ordinary to Badass, episode number 103. In this episode, I'm going to be sharing why Dan Woerheide is so badass. Did you catch the last episode of the podcast where I actually sat down and talked with Dan? So many powerful takeaways from that episode. If you haven't listened to episode 102, you can hop back and listen to that now. Or you can listen to this episode, hear why he's so badass, and then pop back over and listen to that other one next. In case you missed it, Dan is a transformational coach and a marketing enthusiast who is passionate about helping others break the barriers that are holding them back from achieving more in their business and their lives. There were so many great nuggets and takeaways or value bombs from that last episode, and I'll certainly be sharing here in a few minutes a little bit more. But first, if you are loving this podcast or if this episode brings any value to you and you know somebody that it would help out, then definitely I would love for you to share it with them. Usually on your podcast app, there's like 3 little dots in the corner and you can share the link, like hit copy and share the link and send it to somebody. So I would be super grateful if you shared it with somebody that you know could find value from this, because Ordinary to Badass, we're all about community, and I would love to build this community of badasses, and to do that, I need your help. Speaking of which, did you tune into the call last night? On Wednesday nights, we're doing a recap of the episode, or not really a recap, but like we're debriefing on it. What were your takeaways? What did you learn from Dan? How did it help you? How do you deal with fear? Hear how other people deal with fear. I think that so many of our issues can be solved through community. So definitely tune in on Wednesday nights. Currently it's at 6:30 Pacific time in the Ordinary to Badass Facebook group. With that, let's get to the episode. Okay, now I am going to share 4 reasons why Dan Woerheide is so badass. The first one is that he says, don't get boxed in. Don't do what other people expect of you. The second, how he deals with negative thoughts. Number 3, how Dan addresses fear. And the 4th thing is the way Dan pays attention to the good things that happen in his day. All right. Now let's dig into it a little bit further, shall we? Okay, the first thing is Dan says not to get boxed in, and it's so easy to do. And when I asked him what he meant by that, is he was saying like, don't just do what's expected of you. There are so many things that we just do in society because we believe it's what's expected of us. And he gave an example like formal education. And formal education is something that a lot of people believe that is needed, or like after high school, that a lot of people just assume like, I need to go to college. Well, you know what? School isn't for everybody. So if school isn't your thing, why should you force yourself to go to college just because it's expected of you, right? Or just because it's the norm or what everybody around you is doing. That doesn't mean it's good for you. What's good for them isn't always good for you. So that's where I think like reflecting really what's important to you and what matters to you and making decisions based on that. And, you know, Dan experienced this himself. He shared how he was in the military. And he just felt kind of called to do something else. He very easily could have just stayed in the military because that's what he thought he was supposed to do. So that's what I want you to reflect on for a minute. What in your life are you doing because you think it's what you're supposed to do? Where are you trying to fit into other people's perspective or opinion or their belief for you? Or maybe you don't even know that it's their belief. Maybe you don't know it's what they want, but you're just assuming because it's what everybody in your family has done or everybody around you has done. But really take a second and think, is this what I want to do? Or is this what somebody else wants me to do? Because those are the things that we regret down the line. We regret the things that we always wanted to do but never even tried. So even if you try something new and you fail, then at least you tried. All right. The second thing that Dan talked about that I thought was so badass is how he deals with negative thoughts. Dan says you can counteract your negative thoughts with evidence-based thoughts. So a lot of times we just can be like all doom and gloom, right? Where we think, man, everything's going to crap. I really suck at this. And Dan had given the example of like if you're in the military and you have to do like the yearly physical tests and it's easy to get in your head and start thinking like, oh, I'm going to fail. But what does the past evidence tell you? Have you failed in the past? Or even if you have failed in the past, have you been practicing in the meantime? Sometimes we just like make statements that cover everything. It includes the whole realm of things. Maybe we just suck at one little tiny thing, but we make like a blanket statement as if that's true for all things. So maybe you tell yourself things like, I'm awkward. I'm just always awkward. Well, are you always awkward? Is that true for your whole life? Maybe you're awkward in one particular area, but you're probably not awkward with every single thing, right? So maybe you're learning something new and you feel awkward. Yeah, that happens. I remember when I joined martial arts, I felt incredibly awkward and I just felt like I didn't know all the movements and all the coordination. And so I felt incredibly awkward. But did that mean that I was awkward everywhere? No. And similarly, like you could say like, oh, I have no coordination. Well, maybe you don't have coordination in one thing, but you have good coordination in something else. Like somebody could say, I have no coordination, and they're talking about sports or a specific sport, but who knows? Maybe their coordination is good when they're playing video games. But we make these sweeping generalizations that aren't necessarily based on fact. So when you catch yourself thinking negatively or saying negative things, ask yourself, is this true? Is this actually based in evidence? All right. The third thing that I thought was so badass is how Dan addresses fear. Dan said, how can I start addressing fear instead of trying to overcome it? And he talked about this quote, everything we could ever want is on the other side of fear. And Dan said he doesn't think that that's true. Fear can be so overwhelming and so daunting. So how about everything we could ever want is on the other side of action? And what I really loved is how Dan talked about taking small steps towards your goals, small steps to overcome your fears, and just the teeny tiny micro steps that you can take every day. And yeah, it helps you to overcome your fear, but it's just about taking action. One small action. And actually, Dan had said maybe you come up with 2 steps that you can take, right? And they can be micro steps. It doesn't have to be huge. But what's one thing that you could do in the next 24 hours? Just a simple action step. So maybe you've always wanted to draw and you just haven't been drawing. Okay. So then you draw. You make a goal to draw in the next 24 hours, right? Or you make a goal. You don't even have to do that, to pick up some art supplies so that you can start drawing. Just one little tiny thing that you can do in 24 hours to go towards your goal, or to check out your interest, or the thing that you're afraid of doing, your fears. You could do one little tiny thing. Like there's something you want to do, but you have some fear or something that you're scared about, like that's in the way. Okay, what's the smallest step that you can take? And I think that removes some of it. If we just look at the small steps, we often think that we just have to take like leaps and bounds and just leap past our fear, right? That's not true. It's just the small steps that you take along the way. And then just by taking action is what gets you moving and gets you over that fear. And then you also have like a little like swag, right? Because you're doing something to push past something that scared you. And that's freaking awesome. And it's often like, I think it's just about knocking over the dominoes, just one domino at a time, just doing one little thing, knocking over the domino. And then that like gives you momentum to knock over the next domino, to do the next thing. So just start with one small thing. Okay. Number 4. Dan pays attention to the good things in his day. And something that Dan had talked about was identify 3 things that happen throughout the day, or 3 good things that happen throughout the day. And then ask yourself, what part did I play in bringing that good thing about? What can I do to replicate that tomorrow, to do it again tomorrow, that good thing that I did? Oftentimes, we get so caught up in the negativity or any mistake that you made throughout the day, and it doesn't make us feel good about ourselves, right? It's easy to start beating yourself up or looking at all your mistakes, but consider taking Dan's advice. Do what he does. Reflect on 3 good things that happen throughout the day. And then ask yourself how you can bring them about tomorrow. What can you do to do that again? So, what good did you do today? What 3 good things that happened to you or that you did? And is there a way that you can bring them about tomorrow? And maybe that good thing is just going on a walk. And that felt good because you were able to connect with yourself. Okay. Can you do that again tomorrow? Can you find a way to squeeze that thing into your schedule again tomorrow? You know, sometimes like happiness or joy can be elusive, but we have to be intentional about bringing those things into our life and doing things that actually bring you joy. So, what 3 good things happened to you today? How can you bring that in tomorrow? How can you replicate that so that it happens again tomorrow? All right. Quick recap of the 4 things that I think are so badass about Dan Woerheide. 1 is how Dan says not to get boxed in. Don't just do things because everybody else is doing them. 2, how Dan deals with negative thoughts and looks for evidence-based thoughts instead. Number 3, how Dan addresses fear. And the 4th thing that I thought was so badass was how Dan pays attention to the good things in his day. He finds 3 good things that happened throughout the day and then figures out how to replicate it the following day. All right. What did you think of this episode? Or what did you think of Dan's episode? I would be so grateful if you took a screenshot of this episode and then put it in your Instagram stories and tagged me at Ordinary to Badass, and I will make sure Dan gets it as well. But here's the thing. Actually, I'll throw it in the show notes what his Instagram handle is. It's hard to be vulnerable. It's hard to open up and share, the different things that you've gone through, like mindset struggles, etc. But Dan was here. He shared the different things that he's gone through. And so it's not always easy, but I think it's super important. People are coming on this show, sharing their journey. What was your takeaway? That's what I would love for you to put in your Instagram stories. Like, take a screenshot and then say what your takeaway was. What is it that you learned from Dan? Or what is it that you're going to take and implement? Did you relate to something that he taught you? Or something that he spoke about that happened to him? And then you're like, ooh, yeah, that's me. Or I want to know more about that. Or, hey, I listened to this episode and, I had some fear and then I did this. As a result, I took this tiny step. Because that's the kind of feedback people want, right? They want to know if they impacted you, how they impacted you, what step it led you to take. Like, that's freaking awesome. That's freaking badass. So let's share with Dan on Instagram what your takeaways were from this episode and how it impacted you. All right. With that, we'll end our show. To all the badass women out there staying in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, own it and get after it.
Now that you've listened to this episode of Ordinary to Badass, we want to hear from you. Go to our website, ordinarytobadass.com/podcast, and submit your own experience on how you took your life from ordinary to badass and get the chance to be on a future spotlight episode of the show. That's ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. While you're waiting for the next episode of the show, wipe off the sweat, dust off the dirt, and get back in the arena.